in this episode how to solve quadratic equations by factoring or factorizing. I will come up with some tips, techniques and examples. Stay tuned. Hey guys, before I jumped into this stuff about solving and factoring, let me clear up something. There are different techniques of solving quadratic equations. By the way, what is quadratic equation? So it's something like containing x, which is your variable, and the highest power of x that appears in your expression is 2. That's why actually it's called quadratic equation. I'm going to call them just quadratics, just for short. Now, what does it mean to solve quadratic equation? That simply means you need to find the value of x. And apparently there are two values of x. There are two roots or two solutions because it's quadratic. So this power 2 kind of implies that you have two solutions or two roots. Keep it in mind, that's important. So we solve for x. Now, as I mentioned before, there are different techniques and you can check my other videos to figure out another techniques. In this episode, I'm going to break it down factoring or factorizing. Alright. Now, the first instance we're going to take up, it's when your leading coefficient is 1. What is the leading coefficient? It's basically the coefficient in front of x squared. Sometimes it's called the first coefficient because it comes first, or leading coefficient. It's precisely the same thing. So the first case when you have actually nothing in front of x. So here basically it's kind of invisible and understood implied 1. This case comes out a lot in different problems and different situations. So let's take a look at this. Now, we're going to factor in this quadratic expression, actually the left hand side. It's gonna be broken down into two sets of parentheses, both starting with x, the variable you are given. Now, there are two gaps, there are two holes over there, and we are going to fill out these two holes. Now, we're going to look for two numbers that get multiplied to the last coefficient. So in this problem it's 6. And these two numbers have to add up, have to sum up to the last coefficient, which is basically 5. The middle coefficient. And we're looking for two numbers that have to add up, have to sum up to the middle coefficient, which is 5 in this problem. Okay, one more time. We're looking for two numbers, we're searching two numbers that multiply to the last coefficient, which is 6, the last constant in this problem, and they add up to the middle coefficient, which is 5. Here I wrote L and M. You might remember in this way, like L comes first, which stands for last, and M comes second in the alphabet, that M comes after L, and M stands for middle. It's kind of mnemonic device or mnemonic trick, if you like. Now, the question can be raised here, how to find these two numbers. You can take this 6 and you can list out all factors of 6. You can list out the pairs of numbers that their product gets to 6. Let's do it. So let's make a list of these factors of 6. So basically you could always start with 1, because 1 and 6, their product gets to 6. Now, don't forget that your numbers can be negative, so just insert negative in front. Now, let's make all list and we can exclude the unnecessary pairs later on. Next, it's gonna be 2 and 3, 6, since their product gets to 6, 2 times 3, and there also can be negatives, negative 2 and negative 3. Now, I think we're done with this list. You can also switch the order. It could be like 6, 1, 3, 2, negative 3, negative 2, but at this point it doesn't matter. Now, let's figure out which pair get to add to the middle coefficient, which is 5. 1 plus 6, 7. No, it doesn't work for us. Minus 1 minus 6, you add them, negative 7. No, no way. 2 and 3, 2 plus 3 leaves you exactly 5. That's what we're looking for. So this is my required pair of these two numbers. So you don't have to check out the rest. We can assume they will not work for our problem. So 2 and 3. We can check it again. So 2 times 3 gives you 6, and they add up to 5. Now, we are going to take these two numbers, namely 2 and 3, and we are going to fill out these two gaps. So 2 goes here, 3 goes there. By the way, it's kind of a side note, you can flip the order. Order wouldn't matter in this case. You could write either 3 here and 2 there. You can switch them. Not a big deal. Now, we are done with factoring, but we are not done with solving. Now, you have two factors multiplied together and their product equals 0. Take these two brackets and literally pull them down. We take the first bracket and we set it equal to 0. The same thing goes for the second parenthesis. Set it equal to 0, according to zero product law. So it becomes x plus 2 equals 0, or x plus 3 equals 0. And we came up with two linear equations for x. And what we are going to do is just solve them separately. And we will get two solutions, two values of x. Now, when x plus 2 equals 0, so basically what you can do, you can just subtract 2 from both sides. Here it cancels out, and your x becomes just negative 2. This is your first root, this is your first solution. Moving on, similarly, in the same way, we want to subtract, we want to take away 3 from both sides. So on the left side, we're making x as a subject, it becomes just negative 3. This is your second solution, or second root. We're done. As I mentioned before, make sure that you get two solutions, two roots, because you have a quadratic. Because sometimes people get tripped on and lost somehow one of these solutions. So this is important. This is vitally important. We're done yet. This is your actual answer. But I would like to point out one thing. I would like to give you a kind of pro tip or bonus tip. Now, my pro tip is, when you get your answer, when you get your roots, check it out. Check, verify your answer, and make sure that you got the correct, the right solution. This is important, especially when you are sitting for a proper test like Cambridge or whatever. So just, if you have time, just make sure that you've done your work correctly. Because to be honest with you, there are so much stuff in this. There are so much nitty-gritty. Sometimes it's just a little sign error, or sometimes you are given negative coefficient, and when you pulled out and solve linear equations, and at that point slight mistakes, slight slip-ups can happen, you know. So just to be sure that you did your work properly and correctly, it just would take you 20 seconds, or even you could do it in your head mentally, so you don't have to write it down off to the side. Let's do it. I take this negative 2 and I substitute, I plug it in into my original equation. So this negative 2 I'm going to place instead of x, everywhere x appears in my quadratic. So it becomes just negative 2 squared plus 5 negative 2 plus 6. Just check if it equals 0. So this gives you 4 minus 10 plus 6. Just check it. So here it's negative 6 plus 6 gives you 0. So it checks out. It does work. Same thing goes for negative 3. Let's check it out. So negative 3 you raise to the second power plus 5. And ask yourself, does it equal 0? So 9, and you end up with 0 equals 0. this is basically true. So the second solution, the second root also checks out. As I said before, you don't have to write it explicitly. Now, suppose you've been given something like this. First thing to do, always, check to see if your quadratic equation is written in a standard form. Now, what is the standard form? Standard form, basically, it's like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So that simply means that you have all your terms collected on the left side and you have 0 on the right side. Now, you have your x terms on the left side and you have 6 on the right side. So what you can do, you can just move this 6 to the left side by subtracting 6 from the both sides. So you subtract 6 and it becomes so at this stage you did achieve the standard form. Now look at the first term, x squared. You have this negative that actually pops out at you. The thing is, you don't want this negative. You always want that your leading coefficient is positive. It could be -1, it could be -2, or any number that appears in your problem. So you want to make it positive. To achieve this, you could either multiply both sides of your equation by -1, or you can divide both sides of your equation by -1. It actually doesn't matter. But what it does, it will flip the sign in front of your terms. It switched the sign to the opposite. So the first leading coefficient would become just positive. So by the way, here we have actually -1. It's invisible, it's understood, it's implied to be 1. So you can take a pick. You could either, as I said, multiply by -1 or divide by -1. But make sure that you do it to both sides of your equation. But to be perfectly frank with you, for the right side, it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't make any sense because 0 times anything will still remains 0. So, but just keep in mind that you have to do, when you multiply or divide, you have to apply this to both sides of your equation because you don't want to change the overall value of your equation. So let's do it. So let's just multiply it by -1. It becomes so you simply switch the signs in front of your terms and still right side it's still 0. Now at this point you arrived at the standard form and you can use the first approach, the first technique of what I showed you before. So basically you might spot this is our first case, what we did a few minutes ago. Moving on. How about this one? How to handle this one? All right. At the first glimpse, it's not written in a standard form. So start by rewriting, by rearranging your equation into a standard form. So to achieve this, you want to move all terms that are actually on the right side, you want to move them on the left side. So to achieve this, you just simply subtract 15x from both sides, and you subtract also negative 18 from the both sides. So you would get now, the next thing to do is, first of all, you have this negative in front, it's actually pops out at you, and you want to eliminate, you want to kill this negative, so you want to get rid of this somehow. But another thing, what you can notice, look at these numbers, look at these coefficients closely, so carefully. So, to be perfectly honest with you, you have these numbers, and what you can notice, all of them are divisible by 3. So, meaning negative 3 or 3, it doesn't matter actually, is divisible by 3, you can divide it by 3. 15 divisible by 3 and negative 18 or 18. So 3 is a factor, is a common factor of all of these terms. Now, because we want to get rid of this negative, so I would consider not 3 but negative 3. And you could either factor out this negative 3 in front of your quadratic, or the same thing, you could divide by negative 3 both sides again, both sides of your equation. Basically, you would achieve the same goal. You would have your equation little bit simpler than it was in the beginning, and also you would eliminate, you would remove this negative in front of your first term. So let's just divide by negative 3. So you have to do it to both sides. It's like repeating because this is important. But still, because of you have 0, it doesn't make that much difference at this stage. Now, we divide by negative 3. And your equation becomes, so you flip the sign. Your equation becomes the first case, what we did before. Alright, and my final added bonus tip or pro tip. Always try to check your solution. Because, as I said, so much nitty-gritty, so much little things, positive, negative, you multiply, you add, you're looking, you're searching for numbers, so you might make some slip-ups, you might make some mistakes. So just be sure that you got your correct answer. Just check it out to be sure that you are correct. Alright, I know it's kinda pesky, but guys, life is not that easy. Thank you for watching, and I hope it helps you. I know everyone hates math, but if you like my video, please click like, share with your friends, leave the comment down below, and smash that subscribe, so you will not miss out my new videos. Train your brain.